Far away, beyond the stars that humans see at night, there was a world filled with strange lights and endless deserts. In that world lived many alien beings, tall and strong, with shining skin and sharp eyes. They walked with pride, they worked together, they laughed in groups. But in the middle of this busy world there was one small figure, forgotten and alone. She was a little alien girl, no bigger than a human child. Her skin was pale like fading moonlight, her eyes wide and filled with sorrow. Her legs were twisted and weak. She could not stand like the others. She could not run or dance in the glowing fields. Instead, she crawled on the dusty ground, dragging her broken body through the dirt. The others saw her, but they did not stop. Some looked with disgust, some with cold pity, and many turned their eyes away. To them, she was not worth their time. She was weak, she was broken, and in their world, weakness had no place. They whispered cruel words when she passed. They laughed when she tried to move forward, but they never reached out a hand. Every day was the same for her. She crawled out of her small cave at dawn, hoping for food or kindness. She watched the markets where strong aliens traded shining stones. She watched the children play with bright toys made of crystal light. She longed to join them, to laugh, to feel the warmth of friends, but she knew it was impossible. She was the broken one, the one nobody helped. At night she lay under the sky, staring at the stars. Sometimes she imagined voices whispering from above. She wondered if other worlds existed, places where weakness was not shame, places where someone like her might be loved. Her heart ached with questions. Why was she born this way? Why did nobody care? Why did the universe leave her behind? The little alien girl was clever in her silence. Though her body was broken, her mind was sharp. And she carved tiny figures from stone with her hands. She built shapes that looked like towers, ships, and birds. Sometimes she pretended these shapes were her friends. She gave them names and spoke to them in whispers. Her only audience was the cold wind that carried her words away. One day, as she dragged herself to the market square, she fell in the dust. A group of alien children passed by. They laughed loudly, pointing at her. One threw a pebble, another mocked her crawling. Her hands shook, her eyes burned, but she did not cry. She had no more tears left. She only pressed her face to the dirt and waited until they were gone. Then she pushed herself up slowly, as if the ground itself wanted to hold her forever. Deep inside, she still had hope. It was a tiny spark, almost invisible, but it lived in her heart. She dreamed that one day someone would see her, not as a burden, but as a soul. She dreamed that one day a hand would reach down, not to mock her, but to lift her. She dreamed that her broken legs might not decide her future forever. Her world, however, had no mercy. The people around her valued strength above all. The weak were left behind, the broken were forgotten. And so she wandered like a ghost in her own village, unwanted, unseen. Her life was a chain of lonely days and colder nights, yet the stars above her never stopped shining. Each night they seemed brighter, as if calling to her. Sometimes she whispered to them, "If anyone is listening, please, please find me." She believed maybe the stars could hear, maybe someone out there cared. And one night, as she gazed at the endless sky, something truly strange happened. A light brighter than all the stars moved across the heavens. It was not like the usual glowing comets. It was steady, strong, and moving closer. The little alien girl's heart beat faster. She sat up with effort, her weak body trembling. And was it a sign? Was it hope finally coming from the sky? She watched until her eyes ached. The light grew larger, brighter, and seemed to fall gently toward the horizon. The air shook, the ground trembled, a sound like thunder echoed across the land. The others in the village looked up too, but they watched with fear. The girl, however, felt something different. She felt a pull deep in her soul, a whisper telling her that change was coming. The broken alien girl, who had always been ignored, now stared at the glowing horizon with wide eyes. For the first time in her lonely life, she did not feel invisible. She felt that someone or something had finally answered her silent cries. She did not know who or what was coming, but in her heart she believed her story was about to begin. The night after the strange light crossed the sky, the little alien girl could not sleep. She lay awake in her cave, her heart still racing. Her weak legs ached from crawling all day, but her eyes stayed wide open, staring at the glowing horizon. She felt something deep inside, a voice whispering that the light was not just a star, it was something more. The next morning, the village was loud. The strong aliens gathered in the square, talking in nervous voices. They had seen the light too. They spoke of danger, of fire from the sky, of strangers that should never be trusted. Some warned that invaders had come before, bringing destruction. Others said it was a bad omen. They all feared what they did not understand. But the little alien girl felt no fear. For her, fear was an old friend. She had lived with it every day of her life. What she felt now was different. It was hope, small and fragile, but real. She crawled out of her cave and looked toward the desert where the light had fallen. Her heart whispered, "Something is waiting for you." Far away, beyond the dunes of shining sand, a human ship rested. Its silver body glowed under the twin Sioux. Its engines hummed softly, sending waves through the ground. And near the ship walked a man, a human traveler. He was tall compared to the aliens, his skin different, his steps firm and calm. His eyes carried both curiosity and kindness. He was exploring this strange world, but he did not yet know his path would cross with someone forgotten. The man moved carefully, scanning the air with his small device. He took notes. He collected samples. He had seen many planets before, but this one felt heavier, not because of the ground, but because of the silence in the air. He felt eyes watching him, though none dared to approach. From the distance, the little alien girl watched him. She had never seen anything like him. His clothes were strange. His tools glowed. His walk was steady. Unlike her people, he did not look at her with disdain because he had not yet seen her. Still, something inside told her he was different. She began to crawl closer, her body dragging across the hot sand, each movement slow and painful. When the human man finally saw her, he stopped. At first he thought it was a trick of the desert, a small figure in the dust. But then he noticed the truth. A little girl, frail and broken, struggling to move forward. She lifted her head. Their eyes met. For a moment the world grew silent, only the wind spoke. The man's heart tightened. He had seen suffering in many forms, but this was different. There was something about the way she looked at him, not with anger, not with fear, but with desperate hope. Her hands shook, her legs dragged behind her, yet she tried to reach him, inch by inch. Behind them, from the village, voices rose. The strong aliens shouted warnings. They did not want the human near her. They told him she was cursed, useless, not worth saving. They told him to leave her, to step away before misfortune touched him. The human man looked at them, then looked back at the little girl. His choice was clear. He bent down, kneeling in the sand, and stretched out his hand. The girl froze. Her eyes widened. No one had ever done this before. No one had ever reached for her with kindness. For so long she had been invisible. Now someone was looking at her, really looking. She hesitated, trembling. Her mind screamed with doubt. Was this another trick? Would he laugh like the others? Would he throw her back into the dirt? But his eyes told a different story. They were gentle, steady, and full of something she had never seen before. Compassion. Slowly, her small hand touched his. His fingers closed gently around hers. The human man smiled, a soft smile, one that seemed to warm the cold desert around them. The aliens in the distance gasped. Some hissed in anger, some turned away in disgust, but the man ignored them. He lifted the girl carefully into his arms. She was light as a feather. Her body trembled with weakness, yet in his embrace she felt weightless. The girl looked up at him, her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Their languages were different, their worlds far apart, yet in that moment they understood each other. She had been waiting her whole life for someone to see her, and he had been searching the stars for a reason to care. The man carried her toward the shade of a rock. He offered her water from his flask. She looked at it with wide eyes, afraid at first, then slowly drank. The cool taste filled her mouth, and for the first time in years, she felt alive. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in red and gold, the man studied her broken legs. His heart ached. He knew they were not just injured, they were beyond healing by natural means. But he also knew something else. Humans had technology, humans had spirit, and humans never walked away from those in need. The girl resting in his arms felt warmth she had never known. She did not understand who he was or why he cared, but for the first time she believes. And that maybe the universe had listened to her whispers. Maybe the stars had sent her this man, and as darkness covered the land, the human man looked at her and whispered softly, "You are not alone anymore." She could not understand the words, but she understood the feeling. The lonely alien girl had met the man from the sky, and her story of despair was about to turn into something greater, something the whole universe would never forget. The desert night was quiet. The twin suns had set, and the sky glowed with strange purple stars. The human man sat near his silver ship, and beside him lay the little alien girl, wrapped in a soft blanket he had taken from his pack. She had never felt such warmth before. The fabric was smooth, gentle against her skin. It was a simple thing for him, but to her, it felt like magic. Her eyes studied him carefully. She had never been this close to anyone without fear. His face was different, his eyes round and kind, his hair short and dark. His hands carried rough lines from years of work. Yet when those hands touched her, they were steady, careful, never cruel. For her, it was the first time a touch did not hurt. The man tried to speak. His voice was low and calm. He said words in his human language, soft sounds that meant nothing to her ears. But the tone carried something deeper. She could feel it in her heart. He was not mocking her, not commanding her. He was trying to comfort her. The girl tilted her head. She raised her thin hand and pointed at her chest, whispering her name. Her voice cracked, almost lost in the desert wind. The human man listened carefully, repeating the sound clumsily. She gave a small smile, the first smile she had in many years. Then she pointed at him, her eyes asking silently. He tapped his chest and spoke his own name. His voice was stronger this time. Her lips moved, trying to copy it. She stumbled it over the strange sound, but laughed softly. He laughed too, and in that moment, two worlds grew a little closer. The man opened his pack again, pulling out food wrapped in silver. He broke it into small pieces and held it out to her. The smell was strange, but she was so hungry, her hands shook as she reached for it. For a moment she froze, afraid it might be a trick, afraid he would pull it away at the last second like the cruel children from her village. But he did not. His hand stayed steady, waiting for her. Slowly, she took the food and placed it to her lips. The taste was unlike anything she had known, warm, filling. She swallowed quickly, her eyes shining with surprise. He gave her more, smiling each time, and she ate until her small stomach could hold no more. After the meal, she looked at him with wide eyes. She could not speak his words, but she wanted to thank him. She placed her hand gently on his arm, her touch trembling. The man looked down and saw the gratitude in her eyes. He nodded softly, placing his hand over hers. That simple moment was more powerful than all the cruel years she had lived. But kindness was not free in her world. From the edge of the desert, shadows moved. A group of strong aliens had been watching, their faces twisted in anger. They did not like what they saw. To them, the girl was worthless, and this outsider was breaking their law of strength. They shouted warnings in their harsh language, telling him to let her go. They threw stones in the sand near his feet. Their voices grew louder, filled with hate. The girl trembled in fear. She knew what they were saying. She knew the danger. Her people did not forgive kindness to the weak. She tried to crawl away, whispering to the man with tears in her eyes, begging him to leave her, to save himself. But the human man shook his head. He did not understand her words, but he understood her fear. He stood tall, shielding her with his body. His eyes burned with defiance. He shouted back in his own language, his voice carrying power even the aliens could feel. The others hesitated. They were many, but they saw the fire in his eyes. They were not facing weakness. They were facing a human, and humans were not known to step back when it came to protecting the helpless. Finally, the angry voices faded. The alien spat on the sand and retreated, disappearing into the shadows. The girl's body shook with relief. She looked up at him with disbelief. No one had ever chosen her over safety before. No one had ever risked anger for her. The man bent down again, his face softened. He touched her shoulder gently, reassuring her. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, a shy smile breaking through her fear. For the rest of the night, they stayed close. The human told stories in his language, his voice rising and falling like music. She did not understand the words, but she closed her eyes and listened. For the first time, her dreams were not filled with loneliness. They were filled with hope. When the morning sun rose again, the girl looked at him. Her heart whispered something she had never dared to believe. She was not alone anymore. She had found the first touch of kindness, and it came from a man who had fallen from the sky. The sun rose again over the desert, painting the sky with orange fire. The human man worked near his ship, checking his tools and recording strange signals from the land. But his thoughts returned again and again to the little alien girl resting under the shade of the rock. She was small, fragile, and silent, yet her eyes spoke louder than any words. The girl watched him too. She sat quietly, hugging her knees, her blanket still around her thin shoulders. She wanted to believe he would not leave her like the others, but fear still lived inside her heart. She had been hurt too many times before. Trust did not come easy. The man knelt beside her, showing her strange objects from his pack, shining tools, glowing screens, tiny machines that hummed softly. She touched them with curious fingers, her eyes wide. He laughed gently, pointing to the sky and then to his ship, trying to explain that he had come from the stars. She tilted her head, trying to understand. A small spark of wonder lit inside her, but when his hand brushed against her broken legs, she flinched. Her whole body stiffened, her eyes filled with fear. The man froze, realizing he had touched a wound deeper than skin. Slowly, carefully, he lowered himself to the ground and met her eyes. He spoke softly, though she did not know the words. His voice carried patience, a question, a promise that he wanted to understand. The girl lowered her gaze. Her hands shook. She pressed her fingers into the dirt, drawing simple shapes. The man watched, trying to follow. First she drew a house, then many tall figures around it. Then she drew a smaller figure, herself, lying on the ground. And then she scratched sharp lines over the small figure's legs. The man's heart sank. He understood. She had been hurt long ago. Her legs were broken not by nature, but by violence. The marks she drew were like claws, like weapons. He saw her eyes fill with tears. Her lips trembled as she shook her head again and again. She erased the drawing quickly, her hands moving fast, as if afraid the memory itself could punish her. Then she curled into herself, covering her face. Her shoulders shook, silent sobs breaking from her chest. The man felt a storm of anger rise inside him, not at her, but at the cruelty of those who had left her this way. He could not understand why anyone would harm a child, why her own people had abandoned her. He wanted to tell her that she was not broken, that she was not worthless, but he had no words in her language, only his ha. And his eyes, his actions could speak for him, so he reached out slowly, resting his hand on her small shoulder. She flinched again, but this time she did not pull away. She looked at him with wet eyes, searching, afraid, but also desperate for comfort. His touch was gentle, steady, not demanding, only offering. She whispered something in her tongue, words he could not understand, but he listened anyway, nodding as if he understood. For her, that was enough. No one had ever listened to her before. No one had ever cared to know her pain. The man pulled out a small device from his belt, a scanner. He moved it gently over her legs. A soft light glowed, showing twisted bones and damaged muscles inside. His chest grew heavy. He could see how much she had suffered. He could see why she could not walk. The girl watched the glowing light, fear mixing with wonder. She pointed at the device, then at him. Her eyes asked the question her lips could not. "Can you fix me?" The man looked at her, his jaw tight. He did not know if he had the tools to heal her completely, but he knew one thing. He would try. He could not walk away now, not after hearing the secret of her pain. That night, the girl sat beside a small fire he built. She stared into the flames, remembering the day her life had changed. She remembered running once, chasing glowing insects with other children, laughing, then the attack, the claws, the pain that burned like fire, and then the silence, the turning away of her people, the loneliness that never ended. She thought she had been cursed, that the universe had chosen to punish her. But now, sitting beside this human man, she felt something different. His eyes told her she was not cursed. She was not forgotten. The human man studied her from across the fire. He could not hear her thoughts, but he could see her spirit, broken yet unyielding. He whispered in his language, "I will not let you suffer alone." She did not know the meaning, but she felt the promise. The desert wind carried their silence. The stars above shone brighter, as if watching. The secret of her pain had been revealed, and in that truth, a new bond had formed, stronger than fear, stronger than despair. For the first time, the little alien girl believed her story might not end in darkness. For the first time, the human man felt he had found his true mission. And as the fire burned low, they both looked at the stars, silently agreeing that the universe had brought them together for a reason. The human man sat inside his silver ship, the lights of his tools glowing across the metal walls. His hands moved quickly, opening boxes, pulling out wires, scanning devices and pieces of strange metal. His mind was heavy with one thought: the little alien girl could never walk again unless someone helped her. Outside, under the stars, she waited, her small body wrapped in the blanket he had given her. She did not know what he was doing inside, but her heart whispered that he was thinking about her, No one had ever spent even a moment to care for her, and now this man was spending whole nights searching for a way. The man knew the risk. His team on the ship had warned him many times. She was not human, her body was different, her bones were strange. To use human technology on her could be dangerous. It might fail, it might harm her even more. But his heart refused to accept leaving her broken. He stood by the window, watching her through the glass. The girl was humming softly to herself, a sound almost like a lullaby. She clutched one of the small stone figures she had carved, pressing it close to her chest. The man clenched his fists. His decision was clear. He would try, no matter the cost. The next morning, he walked to her with steady steps. In his hands, he carried a case filled with shining tools. She looked up, her eyes wide. She tilted her head in confusion. He knelt in front of her, pointing gently at her legs, then at the case, then back at himself. His eyes asked the question, "Do you trust me?" Her heart pounded. She remembered the cruelty of her people, the laughter, the pain, the endless crawling in the dust. Could she dare to believe in this man? Could she dare to hope again? She hesitated, tears filling her eyes. Then she nodded, a small, fragile nod. The man gave her a soft smile. He set up his tools carefully. He placed a glowing scanner beside her. He touched her leg gently, speaking calm words she could not understand. His voice was steady, like a song of comfort. He worked for hours, connecting wires, shaping pieces of metal into curved supports. The girl watched him with wonder. Sometimes she winced in pain as he adjusted her legs, but he always paused, always gave her time. His hands never shook, his eyes never turned away. From the edge of the desert, the villagers watched. Their whispers carried through the wind. They shook their heads. Some mocked him, some cursed him. They said he was a fool, wasting his time on a useless child. They warned he would destroy himself with his foolish kindness. But the man ignored them. His focus never broke. He was building not just machines, but hope. At last, he lifted two shining supports, mechanical frames shaped like legs. They glowed faintly with blue light. He placed them gently against her broken limbs. The girl gasped, her body trembling. She had never seen anything like it. Her fingers touched the cold metal, her eyes filled with both fear and wonder. The man tightened the straps carefully, adjusting the wires so they connected to her skin without harm. Then he stepped back, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He looked into her eyes and nodded. It was time. The girl's heart raced. She tried to move. At first, nothing happened. Her legs felt heavy, strange, as if they belonged to someone else. She tried again, pressing her hands into the ground. Her body shook. The metal supports hummed. Then slowly she began to rise. Her arms trembled, sweat rolled down her face, but the man held her steady. His strong hands supported her back. His voice was calm, encouraging. She pushed harder, her knees straightened. For the first time in her life, she was standing. The world tilted around her, her head spun. The desert stretched wide before her eyes, not from the ground, but from above it. She looked at her feet, at the glowing supports holding her up. Tears filled her eyes, her lips trembled. The man smiled, his eyes shining with pride. He whispered softly, though she could not understand, "You can do this." She took her first step. It was small, clumsy. Her body leaned too far and she almost fell. But the man caught her, steadying her again. She tried once more, one foot forward, then the other. Her body wobbled like a newborn creature, but she did not fall. Her heart screamed with joy. For years she had lived in the dust, crawling, forgotten. But now, with each shaky step, she was rising from the ground. The villagers gasped from the distance. Their voices turned from mocking to shocked whispers. They pointed, unable to believe their eyes. The broken girl was walking, not because of them, but because of a human. The girl took another step, then another. Her tears fell freely now. She turned her face up to the sky, whispering a prayer of thanks to the stars. The man stood beside her, his hand ready to catch her, his eyes filled with fierce determination. He knew the risk was far from over. The supports were only the beginning. Her journey would be long, painful, filled with danger. But tonight, he had given her something no one else ever had, a second chance to stand. As the sun sank below the horizon, the girl took her first unsteady steps into a future she had once believed impossible, and the man standing beside her knew that his risky decision had changed not only her life but his own. The desert air was heavy with silence. The villagers who had gathered stood frozen, their eyes wide. For years they had seen the little alien girl crawling in the dirt. They had mocked her weakness. They had turned away from her pain. But now, before their very eyes, she was standing, supported by strange human machines. Her legs trembled. The glowing metal supports hummed softly. Her body swayed as if she might collapse at any moment. The human man stood beside her, one hand close to her back, ready to catch her if she fell. His eyes never left her, steady and full of faith. The girl took a deep breath. Her chest rose and fell quickly. Her heart pounded louder than the wind. She looked down at her feet. She had never seen the ground from this height before. It felt strange, terrifying, and wonderful all at once. "Step," the man whispered in his language, pointing gently forward. She did not understand the word, but she understood the gesture. Slowly, shakily, she lifted her foot. The machine whirred softly. The sand shifted beneath her. And then, she placed it forward. Her first step. Gasps spread through the crowd. Some covered their mouths. Some whispered in disbelief. The girl herself could not believe it. She looked at her foot pressed into the sand. Her tears blurred her vision. Her lips parted in a trembling smile. The human man smiled too. He nodded, encouraging her. His hand stayed near her arm, but he did not hold her. He wanted her to feel that the step was her own. She tried again. Her other foot moved, clumsy but strong. The machine's glow brightened, supporting her. She wobbled dangerously, her arms flailing. The villagers thought she would fall, but at the last moment, she steadied herself. Another step. The girl laughed through her tears, a sound the villagers had never heard from her before. It was not the laugh of mockery or cruelty. It was pure, filled with joy and disbelief. She covered her mouth as if she could not believe it was her own voice. The man felt his chest tighten. His eyes grew wet. He had seen miracles before in his travels, but this was something greater. This was the rebirth of a soul, the victory of hope over despair. But every step was a battle. Her legs shook violently. Sweat rolled down her pale skin. Her body wanted to give up. Her strength was small, but her spirit pushed her forward step after step. The villagers began to murmur. Some whispered that it was unnatural, that no broken one should rise. Others felt shame crawl into their hearts. They had left her in the dust, and now a stranger had lifted her higher than they ever imagined. The girl stumbled again. This time she fell forward. The crowd gasped. But before she hit the sand, the man caught her, his arms strong, steady. He looked into her eyes and smiled softly, shaking his head as if to say, "Do not give up." She clutched his arm, her small fingers digging into his sleeve. Her tears fell fast now. She wanted to stop, to rest, but she also wanted more. She wanted to prove to herself that she could walk. She wanted to show the stars that had listened to her whispers that their answer had not been wasted. The man lifted her gently back to her feet. He steadied her shoulders. He spoke softly again, words she could not understand but feelings she could. His voice was a promise, a shield, a guide. With shaking breath she tried once more. Her first foot moved, then the other. One, then two. Her body swayed, her arms stretched for balance, but this time she did not fall. This time she took 3 steps in a row. The villagers gasped louder. Some clapped their hands against their cue. Hests in disbelief. A few even cried. They had seen her as nothing for so long, and now she was something greater than all of them. Hope in motion. The girl's laughter turned into sobs. Her tears streamed freely. She looked at the man, her eyes glowing with gratitude. She wanted to tell him everything, her pain, her joy, her thanks, but she had no words. So she did the only thing she could. She reached out and held his hand. The man held it firmly, their hands locked together. For her, it was not just support, it was trust. For him, it was not just kindness, it was purpose. The suns began to sink, painting the sky red and gold. The villagers slowly stepped back. Some left in silence, unable to face the shame of their cruelty. Others stayed, their eyes fixed on the miracle, the broken girl walking with the help of a human. As the stars returned to the sky, the girl stood beside the man. She was exhausted, her legs weak, her body trembling, but she was smiling. For the first time in her life, she felt tall, she felt strong, she felt alive. The human man looked down at her, his eyes filled with pride. He spoke softly again. "You are walking." She did not know the words, but she knew the meaning. She nodded, pressing her small hand to her chest. Her lips whispered a sound that might have been his name. The first step had been taken. The hardest wall had been broken. And though the road ahead was long, the girl now believed she could walk it, not alone, but with him. The night was quiet after her first steps. The desert wind carried only the sound of soft breathing. The human man sat beside the little alien girl. She leaned against his arm, exhausted but smiling. Her legs, now wrapped in glowing supports, trembled with every small movement, yet they held her up. For the first time in her life, she had stood. She had walked. She had tasted freedom. The villagers who had once turned away from her gathered at a distance. They whispered in confusion, their eyes wide with disbelief. Some felt shame for mocking her all those years. Others felt anger that an outsider had shown compassion they never gave, but none could deny what they had seen. The broken girl was walking. As the suns rose again, the man guided her to the village square. The people watched in silence, their pride heavy in their chests. They had believed only strength mattered, yet here was proof that kindness had greater power. The girl stumbled forward, her hand holding the man's tightly. Every step echoed louder than words. Every step was a challenge to everything her people had believed. Children who once mocked her stared with round eyes. Some tugged at their parents' arms, asking how this could be possible. The adults had no answer. They could only watch, their silence louder than their voices. The girl stopped in the center of the square. Her chest heaved, her tears fell freely. She looked around at the faces that had ignored her, the eyes that had turned away. She raised her chin, trembling but proud. Her lips parted, and though her voice was weak, she spoke her name. The sound carried through the air, and for the first time the villagers listened. The man stood beside her. He did not speak their language, but his presence spoke louder than any word. He placed his hand on her shoulder, steady, firm. His eyes met the crowd, and though he was only one man, his gaze carried the weight of all humanity. In that moment, the villagers saw something they had never seen before. They saw compassion. They saw strength and kindness. They saw a broken child given a second chance, not by them, but by a stranger from the stars. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into cries. Some shouted in disbelief, some in awe. A few stepped forward, bowing their heads low, ashamed of the cruelty they had shown. Others backed away, unable to accept what their hearts now told them. The girl looked at them all. Her tears sparkled like jewels on her cheeks. She did not curse them. She did not scold them. She simply walked forward, step by trembling step, showing them she was no longer crawling in the dirt, showing them she was no longer invisible. The man watched her with pride. He had traveled across stars, seen countless worlds, yet this moment felt greater than any discovery. He knew that what made humanity special was not its ships or machines, but its heart, the power to care when no one else would. The girl turned back to him, her eyes glowing. She took his hand again. She wanted to say everything. Thank you. Don't leave me. You saved me. But the words were locked away. So she did what she could. She wrapped her thin arms around him, hugging him tightly. The man froze for a moment, then gently placed his arms around her. It was a simple embrace, but it carried the weight of her entire life. For years she had begged the stars for someone to see her, and now in his arms she finally felt seen. The villagers lowered their heads. For the first time they felt the sting of shame. They had left her behind, yet this man had lifted her higher than any of them ever could. A few of them knelt, not before the human, but before the little girl, as if admitting their mistake. The girl's legs wobbled. She was tired. She could not walk much more, but she stood tall, leaning on the man. She was no longer the broken child they had abandoned. She was proof that mercy was stronger than cruelty. As the day turned to night, the stars shone brighter above. The girl looked up at them, remembering all the nights she had whispered her wishes. She smiled because now she knew the stars had listened. They had sent her a man from another world. They had given her a second chance. The human man looked at her, then at the village. His voice was steady, though they did not understand his language. "She is not broken," he said. "She is alive." His words fell into the silence, carried by the wind, and though they could not understand, they felt the truth in their hearts. The little alien girl pressed her hand to her chest, then pointed at him. Her lips whispered softly, almost forming his name. She smiled through her tears, and in that moment, she was no longer the forgotten one. She was no longer the girl left in the dust. She was a child with a future. The human man had given her more than legs to walk. He had given her dignity. He had given her hope. He had given her a second chance. And so the story of the broken alien girl did not end in despair. It became a story the villagers would tell for generations, a story of a stranger who taught them that true strength is not in power, but in mercy. And for the little girl, it was the beginning of a life she had once thought impossible. A life where she could stand, walk, dream, and smile, not alone, but beside the man who saw her when no one else did.